2 of the last 3 games, the team's gotten off to kind of a slow start, the Colorado game and the Oregon game. Has that been a talking point? Is that something just, you've got to get out of the gate?
Yeah, there's no question. How we start halves, how we finish halves is something that we're always emphasizing, and we've been pretty good with that, at least the starts. We've had, I think we've blown 2 12-point plus or 10-plus point leads. If I remember right, Michigan and Stanford. So we haven't finished, obviously, some of those games, but our start of the games, for the most part, have been pretty good, unless you look at the last 2 weeks. The last 2 weeks, we have not. And so, yeah, we're discussing those things of trying to, whatever we can do to try to help our guys start games at a little quicker pace.
If you sense it's, a minute, 2 minutes in, are you tempted to just call a timeout and just kind of say what's going on here? I mean, or do you let it play? Do you want to let it play out a little bit longer?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we've had a minute or two where it's just been a shellacking.
Right.
I'm trying to think of the games, but Oregon State wasn't that way.
No.
Oregon jumped into a good lead, but it wasn't like it was 10-0 and those type of things.
Right.
So you just got to be caught. You got to be careful of that because you only got a certain amount of timeouts, and especially on the road, it's not like you want them to get away from you. But I never thought that they were really away from us until we had stoppage of play. We did call an earlier timeout against Oregon, but Oregon was something we just got a little bit out of character, I think, and we've said it a long time. We're a different team. When Aaron's not on the court, that's just the way this team is. And I thought in the second half when he was there, we were really good. But we haven't had to deal with what we dealt with in the first half all year long.
How much different are you defensively than where you thought you would be, and how much of it is not having those 3 guys that you thought would be?
Well, again, we go back and there's no excuse, and we told our team that there's no excuse to the way we've defended in the last 2 weeks, because our defense, and really not really Colorado as much as it was. And there were bits and pieces of Colorado, especially to start the game. But this road trip, I didn't like how we guarded. And so it's really been about this road trip, because our defensive efficiency has been right around 100. And this road trip was just not even close. And so it was more the road trip than anything else. So I hope there's lessons that are learned, because we got guys that are fighting and they're giving good effort. We just did not follow defensive rules and principles on this road trip, and we paid for it. And we got embarrassed in a lot of offense, defense things, just because we weren't working together as a unit. And this team has to do that. We're going on a road trip with 8 scholarship players, so it's not like you're going to the 9th, 10th, 11th guy. Those 8 have got to know the pressures that are on them, and it's not to score. We're scoring. I still think we're maybe first in the league still in scoring as far as efficiency goes. So even when we've had lapses against Colorado, or we had some lapses at Oregon State, first half against Oregon, what hasn't been consistent in that 3-game stretch has been relying on your defense. And we were growing. I thought we were really, really from the 1st of December all the way through up until Colorado, I was seeing growth defensively. And in the last 3 games, we've had slippage there, and all of our discussions the last 2 days have been, if you're going to continue to have slippage at that end, this team's not going to be successful. This team has got to get their defensive efficiency around 100 or below. We'd obviously like to be below, but it can't be where it's been the last 3 games and think that we're going to have success.
You mentioned having only 8 scholarship players. Does that change the way stylistically you play? Maybe play more zone just to not tire them out as much?
Well, yeah, and it's kind of a catch-22, because this team is at its best in transition. So this team, for whatever reason, we really play well in transition. And when we've had to play slower tempo games, I don't know this for a fact, we may be 4-4 in our slower tempo games. So obviously our record is better in a higher tempo game. And but Utah was a slower tempo game, but we were really efficient. And when you play a slower tempo game and that's not your style, you got to be really efficient at both ends. You don't have a lot of room for error. So we would much rather play up tempo. But as I've told the guys, you can't play up tempo if you're constantly taking a ball out of bounds. You've got to play up tempo out of defensive stops. So it's kind of a catch-22 of, I think we'd still rather play fast and we'd rather play up tempo, because our guys, we just got a lot of guys that are really good in the open floor. But with that said, if you can't get stops, then you got to slow the tempo.
You talked about
And I think it's about figuring out what, and we're still a work in progress. We'll have games where the ball moves, we get an open three, and instead of taking an open three, we make an extra pass, and it's a better three. We still quick shoot at times, and so it's the guys still figuring out, playing at a fast pace, but not hurrying up. It's an old Coach Wooden saying, but we want to get out and go, we want to play, but we can't be hurried up, and I think sometimes we get hurried up.
You talked about the team being different when Aaron's on the floor. What can maybe a guy like Jalen do to make that absence of Aaron feel a little bit less? What can he improve or do?
Well, I think defensively, and that's where his focal point's got to be. I think he's a very skilled offensive player, scorer, but what he does defensively allows us to maybe give Aaron a little bit of rest, even if Aaron's on the court. If you look at it, with what Aaron's doing, not only his minutes, but his production offensively, he's also guarding the best player on the other team. So there's just an enormous amount of pressure that is put on him day in, day out. And if we can just give him a 2-3 minute blow, even if he can stay on the court, but not have to guard the best player all the time, that helps. So it's not just Jalen, it's the other guards continuing to work on their defensive improvements to where we can do some of those things with Aaron.
Is fatigue, you think, a factor at all when you kind of talk about the numbers at this stage of the season?
Well, it can be. You're in the grind of the season. But again, and we told the team that yesterday. If that is a reason, that's a lack of toughness. And I think that's what's being challenged here is just how tough we are. And there are other teams that are playing 8-9 guys, as well. Now we now have the luxury when we're at home in practices that we don't have on the road, as far as having bodies to practice. Because obviously Jalen and Cody are not traveling with us. Ike did not travel due to his concussion. He didn't travel with us as well, and Alec Wolf was sick a little bit on this trip. So we don't have that luxury on the road like we do at home. But those are, in my opinion, those are excuses of soft play, and we don't want that. You've got to, if you're 8 guys and knowing you're going to play, it's your responsibility to take care of yourselves. It's your responsibility to get the rest, the treatments that you need. It's our responsibility as coaches to monitor maybe practices, and we're doing that. Our practices are about an hour and a half Monday and Tuesday, and then we really back off on Wednesday, getting ready for the games that we're playing Thursday and Saturday, and we can't really do much on Friday. So, we're trying to monitor those things. But other than that, it's just a toughness. I think it's more of a toughness thing from a player standpoint of executing a game plan.
Have you seen them get tougher over the course of the season?
Again, like our defense, I think prior to the Colorado game, we were trending this way, both in toughness and in what we wanted to do defensively. And since the Colorado game, we've had 3 straight games. I think toughness and defense has slipped. And they're valuable lessons for a young team to learn that it only takes 1 game to end up being 2 games that can potentially, now it's 3 games that has happened for us, and we've gotten 3 losses in those games. And we've had slippage in toughness and defense in all 3 of those games. So starting with Cal, moving forward, we can't have slippage. We have got to be better defensively, and we've got to be tougher minded. And if those 2 things happen, we give ourselves a chance. If those 2 things don't happen, the trend's going to stay the same.
Is Ike back now?
I think he is cleared today. I've heard he's cleared for some contact. And if that's true, I'm waiting to talk to Shane, but if that's true, then he'll get a little bit of contact today for the first time.
Are there any lessons? I know 2 years ago you were in about the same spot you are now, and things kind of went the wrong way. Are there any lessons you can apply from that right now going forward?
I don't know, it was 2 years ago, so I'm trying to think of exactly what happened 2 years ago. But I would guess 2 years ago when we had slippage, that slippage just continued. And we've had slippage in the last 2 weeks, and we can't have it anymore. It's got to stop right now, and we've got to buy into what we're doing defensively and get stops, and that'll help our offense. That gives ourselves a better chance of getting, because we're not turning the ball. It hadn't been a ball turnover deal. It's been we're taking the ball out of bounds, and we just can't take the ball out of bounds as much as we're taking it out. We've got to show gains defensively, and we got to show gains in toughness. And if those 2 things improve, then our chances of winning improve.